Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
Yesterday, it was a stunning defeat for the federal government. 7 people arrested in the Oregon standoff were acquitted by a jury. And we're going to take a look at the reactions from the mainstream press, from social media, as well as from the federal marshals themselves, who attacked the defense attorney in the courtroom. Absolutely unprecedented. As people who covered this in the area, a guy who worked for local press said, I've been covering court cases for a decade. I've never seen anything like this. So we're going to talk about all those different incidents. But first, this is what happened. As the New York Times reports it, Bundy brothers acquitted in takeover of Oregon Wildlife Refuge. But look at the first thing they say. Armed anti-government protesters. No bias there about that, right? Well, they were armed and not in violation of any state laws. They openly carried, and that's not a violation. Many people that engaged me on social media, I said, you know, they're doing a protest and they're doing it carrying guns. It's called the First and Second Amendment. It's part of the Constitution. You should read it sometime. And you know, quite frankly, we've covered several different protests around here, and protests like the ones we did at the Alamo in favor of open carry, where we had 1,000 people openly carrying. That was very peaceful protest, because the police didn't attack anybody who were openly carrying. So that's not a problem, except for places like the New York Times. They say it was a surprise acquittal. And then we have reaction from Ryan Bundy's wife. She said, I knew that what my husband was doing was right, but I was nervous because the judge was controlling the narrative. She said they saw the truth. I am so grateful they saw it. And then the attorney who was attacked, Marcus Mumford, said that acquitting Mr. Bundy would be a victory for all Americans. That's what he told the jury. He said, they're deceiving you. And he gestured to the prosecutors. He said, it's the government that picks and chooses the rules it's going to comply with. Isn't that amazing? That's what we've seen with Hillary Clinton, can do anything that she wishes. And yet what they wanted to do was to send these people to jail for a very long time. They didn't charge them with criminal trespass. And I talked to one of the defense attorneys today, Amanda Mendenhall. She was not there as the verdict was announced. She left the case after the closing arguments were made and it was turned over to the jury. So she was even out of state at the time. They called her within 30 seconds of this happening. And as she was on the phone to them, they were clearing out the courtroom after the federal marshals attacked and then arrested the winning defense attorney. But one of the things that she told me was that it was overreach for the federal prosecutors. It was such a gross case of overreach that that's ultimately what defeated them. And yet we see that all the time from the federal government. Here's what they charged them with. They were charged with conspiracy to impede federal employees from discharging their duties. A conspiracy, okay? Right? The federal government, whenever you reveal what they're doing, or if they don't like what you're doing or think that they want to get to you, they always charge you with conspiracy. But in this particular case, conspiracy to impede federal employees. They also faced federal weapon charges, and as the New York Times says, they could have been given very long sentences. The unanimous acquittals covered all charges but one, a theft of government property charge against Ryan Bundy for removing cameras mounted at the refuge with no verdict rendered on it. I don't think he actually took those cameras. I think he took the cameras down. Now, after this verdict was given, everybody not guilty, Mr. Mumford approached the bench and said, I would like for my clients, Ammon and Ryan, to be released. And the attorney who I spoke with, Amanda Mendenhall, said that the judge asked the federal marshal, said the federal marshals may have something to say about this. And Mumford continued on to say, well, I need to see some paperwork, I need to see a warrant, or they need to go free because you don't have jurisdiction here. Fox News reports that as Bundy brothers remain jailed following attorney's outburst in Oregon courtroom, making it look like it is the attorney's fault. KGW had a little bit more neutral headline. They said Bundy's attorney tackled by U.S. Marshals during heated argument with judge. Ammon Bundy's attorney was tackled by U.S. Marshals during a heated argument with the judge after his client was acquitted on all accounts Thursday afternoon. Here's the clip from the attorney who was tackled by the marshals.
So I said, well, if the marshals have something to say about it, let's see what orders they have. Let's see what papers they have that give them authority to take him into custody again. Otherwise, Mr. Bundy's a free man. So I just turned to them and I said, guys, show me what papers you have. And the next thing I know, they surrounded me, they took a hold of me, and they were talking about how I was resisting arrest.
Do you think they acted appropriately?
All right, thank you. That's Marcus.
Now, again, as you just heard, He was simply asking for paperwork before they took him away, which is his right. That is what the law is. One of the other attorneys there, part of the team, said his liberty was just assaulted by the very government that was supposed to protect it, by the very government that just prosecuted his client unjustly as found by the jury. Now, when I talked to Amanda Mendenhall, and as I pointed out, she was part of the defense team. She was not there at the time, but the people who were there were talking to her as the courtroom was being taken out. She said that as he was asking for this paperwork from the judge, these federal marshals surrounded him and began to attack him. The judge said, "Stand down." By that time, they had him on the floor. They twisted his legs, hogtied him essentially so that he couldn't move. And then they took out a taser and tasered him after they had him subdued. As she pointed out, it felt very retaliatory. And as I said earlier, a reporter in the area said, "I've been reporting this kind of stuff for 10 years from the courtroom. I've never seen anything like it. Computers, papers, tables, everything was flying." She said that this is, Amanda Mendenhall that I talked to said this whole thing felt retaliatory. She said there was a very hostile relationship from the government to them from the very beginning. They showed up with vests that said Homeland Security. She said, I don't mind if they're in police uniforms or wearing black vests or whatever, but to have Homeland Security labels all over the place, to step up security the way that they did, implied that their clients were terrorists. And they're not terrorists. And as I said before, she said they would have won if they had come after them for criminal trespass. They would not have contested that even. They would have pled guilty to that. But they didn't do that because that's a misdemeanor. They wanted to punish them. They wanted to put them away for a very long time, because they challenged the government's authority. It was only after they started to talk to people in the area that the government really came after them. The day that Lavoy Finicum was killed, was murdered by the government, they were on their way, at the invitation of that county sheriff in the next county, they were on their way to address people and talk to them about their property rights that the government was taking away, that the federal government was gradually taking away. And the property rights are things like grazing rights, timber rights, water rights, mineral rights. Those are property rights just like your home in the suburbs has a property right associated with it. That's the thing that people don't understand. And I think it's very interesting as well. When I talked to her, I asked her about, I said, "Do you think this is jury nullification?" She said, "No. That's an excuse that's being used by the prosecutors." She said they're being overcharged, and so they can get a longer sentence, and the jury understands that. Now, when you look at the way that the press is reporting this, again, when I look at Fox News talking about this, they say this is a long-running battle over the use of public lands. As I just pointed out, it's not really even public lands. It is private property rights that have been granted that can be sold and traded, and have been for centuries, on these public lands. And it is your private property rights that they're going to be coming for next. You know, there is a lot of ignorance and prejudice surrounding this, a lot of prejudice against these people, saying that they're millionaire ranchers and that sort of thing. One of the reasons there's so much ignorance is because, as we saw last night, Joe Biggs on Facebook posted one of the mainstream media stories on this. And of course, it's been covered by the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Guardian, Fox News, local newspapers. He posted one of those mainstream media reports on Facebook. Facebook took it down, said this post does not meet our community standards. That's why the ignorance, the prejudice, even the racism we saw Cenk Uygur with, Young Turks, say this is nothing but white privilege that these people got off. No, it's not, Cenk. You absolutely have no idea what this is about. You have no appreciation of the issues involved. And I guess you'll remain ignorant because Facebook and the media continues to spin and censor the real truth. Now, this is going to continue. The attorney was released, but now Ryan and Ammon are still in custody. They will be facing trial in Nevada for the original Bundy standoff that was there. And as the Fox News article points out, they say while the charges in Oregon accuse defendants of preventing federal workers from getting to their workplace, the case in Nevada revolves around allegations of a more direct threat with the armed standoff. And I've got to say, I've looked at these documents, and they say that Cliven Bundy threatened federal officers with weapons at the standoff. Cliven Bundy was not at the standoff. Cliven Bundy never carried weapons the whole time I was there, the days preceding it and days after the standoff. It is based on overreach. It is based on lies, and we will have to see what happens with this. But for the time being, there's good news for the Bundys. They have been released. And stay with us. We're going to continue to find out what happened in Oregon. Also, we will be covering the developments as they happen in Nevada as well. David Knight for Infowars.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've been on this the last few months. You probably noticed I've been more crazed, more focused, less brain fog, more energy, more special reports, and it's because of Brain Force.
We kept changing this formula over and over and over again until it became sort of a grand puzzle. This just increases the compounds you already have.
This is what you're actually designed to run on. You will find Brain Force, Survival Shield X2, and other game-changing products at InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139.